Welcome back, everybody. Mental health, once again. Thank you for showing up. We're doing a segment on, we're going to call it PTSD, better known as post traumatic stress disorder. I know most people are probably familiar with that term when it comes to, our veterans and military. But today we're going to just get on the topic of what it really is for the rest of us that are not military, because there's a lot more people that suffer from that. So thank you for joining us here on Be Strong Courageous with Mental Health. I am Brother Hiawatha, aka Bishop H. And of course, I have my co-host here with me today, Brother Jims. How you doing today, sir?
I am doing amazing, my brother. How are you? I am excited. I'm excited, man, because of the topic that's at hand right now that we're going to be discussing with mental health. And PTSD is something that we attribute to soldiers, but man, once we get into it today, I think we're going to be able to see it in a lot of cases, or maybe even if in parts of our lives. So yeah, I'm excited, man. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Absolutely, absolutely. Without further ado, let's go ahead and really jump into it. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Like I said, it's normally we hear it a lot with, like I said, soldiers. But what people don't understand is there's aspects of our lives that we actually take on these conditions or even tagged as having these conditions. So I really want to kind of address some of those things where we're at. It's most likely, or I should say, it's most prevalent you hear with soldiers, but it also happens when people are in situations where they've been injured, they've been sexually assaulted or abused, but it can be really any psychological traumatic event that can cause PTSD. It's one of those things that doesn't always show up like right away. I mean, it can take a month to 3 months at sometimes for some of these symptoms to really show up, to know that you even got a situation going on. So since we're on the topic of symptoms, can you give us an idea, Brother Jims, of what some of these symptoms look like?
Of course, my brother. Give me 1 second. I think let me come in. Here I am. All right. So I think it's very important to understand the symptoms, because by understanding the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, by understanding the symptoms, it kind of gives us ideas. Of course, like we know the medical field, have came up with these symptoms and things like that, but it gives you a good view of like what's going on the inside, and and that's why we're so big on helping. So I want to come in with the symptoms, man. So it can include nightmares, unwanted memories of the trauma that you actually been through, avoiding situations that bring back memories of the trauma, heightened reactions, anxiety, a very depressed mood. You may also experience agitation, irritability, being very hostile or hyper vigilant. You can have self-destructive behavior or social isolation. You can have flashbacks, fear, severe anxiety, mistrust, loss of interest or pleasure in activities, guilt, or loneliness. So these are and also some of the common things will be an emotional detachment or unwanted thoughts. And emotional detachment is you can't really connect on a deeper level. So it's like when you look at these symptoms, it's more than just a soldier's disease. It's like this is life. This is because we are always in traumatic situations, and things of that nature. It's like we have a lot of trauma filled things that go on in our life, whether it's young ages or whatever. So as I was going through these symptoms, I was like, bro, this is us. This is us, man.
Right.
But those are the symptoms, though.
Yeah, the thing that's difficult with PTSD is it's one of those conditions that can come and go. It can definitely stay, for longer periods of time, but it's a condition that can kind of come and go. There's people that have PTSD that if they're not triggered, they're just kind of living life normal. And then one event happens that brings them back to a space and a place that is traumatic for them and makes them get in a headspace where things become difficult.
Hmm.
So that's what kind of makes it sometimes hard to even evaluate when or if people have this condition, because you can have an event at a certain age, and then if you never get triggered, you don't even know that you even have that condition, or that you're suffering from something that can change and alter your mindset. So when Brother Jim's is reading off these conditions, you have to ask yourself, like, do I have any of these types of symptoms, that have shown up? But more importantly, where are these symptoms even coming from?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're really here to try to find out. We're on how do we get here, how do we get out, and then how do we stay out when it comes to the mental health aspect of PTSD, because a lot of us are carrying around stuff that we get triggered by. But there's a driving force behind PTSD. One of the biggest driving forces, or probably the biggest driving force behind PTSD, is simply fear. You know what I mean? Which is an enemy tactic. We know that doesn't come from the kingdom. We know that doesn't come from God, but it is fear driven. The majority of everything PTSD is fear driven. So if you're talking about sexual abuse or sexual assault, it's fear driven. If you're talking about an injury that you've sustained, a traumatic event, it is fear driven.
Mm-hmm.
And so in order for us to get to an operational place of healing, we have to be able to address, understand, and then get ourselves in a space where we can work through the fear of it by being able to come out on the other side. So we'll discuss that a little bit today. But what you think so far, Brother James?
I love it, man. And as I'm going through it and just paying attention to a lot of things, I believe regret is a big factor of PTSD. A lot of times, if you think about a soldier, they experience some traumatic event, right? And they feel like, man, my brother, I could have been there for him. I could have saved him. I could have did this. I could have did that. If you hear what I'm saying, if you hear it in layers of what I'm saying, this is a human problem, regret. Regret is a human problem, and I think that brings on this PTSD symptoms and things, because if you're easily upset and easily angered, you're extremely alert to anything that gets on your nerves. I think about the type of parents who if their children are just playing, maybe they're a little loud or whatever, right? I pay attention to animals and people. This is why I say this. I look at lions, I am about lions, right?
Yeah.
And when they're cubs, they just run up on their parents, saying, do all this, like lean on them. The parents lick them and clean them up and all this kind of stuff, because the parents understand stages and understand where I'm about to go with this. When we see when the slightest noise that our children make get on our nerves, you hear where I'm going?
Yeah.
The slightest noise so I grew up kind of like that, in a sense. Like, you get too loud, you getting on some nerves, you getting screamed at, you getting cussed out, things of that nature. So, but when you think about what I'm saying, is there's something inside of a person that makes them easily aggravated, irritable, and I believe it comes from regret. Being in whatever position of life, whether a person feel like, man, I'm making $5 an hour, I should be making 20. It can actually transition and transfer into other parts of life. Just any small amount of regret can lead you into having these symptoms and having these episodes of what a PTSD actually is. Post-traumatic. Go ahead, man.
100%. One of the things that, I don't know if everybody caught it, but he said memories. The memories he was talking about in the whole when he was talking about all the symptoms, and it's the memory that we actually encase in our mind from an event that makes us feel a certain type of way. So I'll give you an example. I think that I have a certain low level of PTSD when it comes to certain types of screams. And so, like, even when my kids are playing, there's certain frequencies of types of screams that actually make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. And where that stems from my childhood, hearing certain levels of scream that were associated with very negative events. And so I have, in my household, there are certain noise levels and certain things that I don't allow, because it sends me to a place where it's like, that was negative, I don't like that. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't necessarily put me in a a situation where I'm paralyzed or I can't function, although we know PTSD can get people to that state. But what I'm stating here is it's the memory that we encase when it comes to the PTSD. It's the memory of the sexual abuse. It's the memory of the war, maybe losing a fellow comrade. It's the memory of the injury. It's the memory and the emotional thing that we take from something that happened in the past. And so it's like, how do we get beyond that? We get beyond that when we start to have what's the fundamental understanding. I don't have to be a subject matter of my past memories. I can actually move forward. I can actually say, okay, that was an isolated event. Let's talk about renewing of the mind
Mm-hmm.
and getting away from the fear factor of everything that's encased when it comes to the PTSD. I agree with you. Regret is a huge one. Why? Because you're encasing that memory of like, man, if I could have just done this, if I could have just done that, all those types of things, and you're putting it on yourself. And it's just like, we have to be in position, no matter what happens in those types of things, to be able to forgive ourselves and relieve ourselves of that type of trauma, of that type of responsibility, and get in a position to be able to move forward.
110%. And it's something you said because I can very much relate to this. There, my daughter, I call her trumpet, right? My son is not even like, loud and things like that. But my daughter, she's very loud, right? And it really triggers me sometimes.
Mhm.
And I know when if it triggers me and my response is wrong,
Mhm.
I can deflate her
Oh yeah.
because of my response. And I realize that's only coming from my perspective. And it might not be the right perspective because and these are things I have to learn because I don't want to go year after year and she is being her normal
Right.
and her normal irritates me, bothers me, and I want to change her normal. Well, maybe God has her built this way because she need to be sounding loud from the rooftop, right? So
Right.
I may need to check my you kind of because I can actually take her voice,
100%.
and that's something that I'm very aware of now that I don't want to do. And you're right, it's so many things from my childhood that triggers me to have these PTSD moments and things like that. So I'm just so much more aware of it. And I'm trying to catch myself so much more now that I'm not easily triggered by where my daughter is in her journey and her walk in life in general. Because I want her to be able to connect to God and to authentically live it out. So whether she's a loud, what I'm saying, blowing trumpet from a rooftop, but in reality, when I look at personality things, I think I think for me, I'm starting to understand there's a time for everything, right? And so when
Right.
I say that I want to get her in that direction where she understands there is a time to be this way and a time to be this way and things of that nature. So I get it, bro. And I just realized that it's me that's being triggered. It's not actually because of the thing that the person is doing. It's actually just me that's being
Right.
triggered. And so I look at the fruit of the spirit. One of them is self-control. And so I need to overcome me.
100%. That's all of us. I want to read a statistic, um, because I didn't really know what the true statistic was, but it says about 7 to 8% of the mental health realm are people that are been tagged, I like to say, as having PTSD. 7 to 8%.
Hmm.
Um, I would venture to think that number's higher. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many
Undiagnosed.
undiagnosed different forms that come out, things that happen to people. You ever been in a situation like Brother James was saying, like, man, that's something that happened. I'd be irritated, or I'd be sad, or I'd be this, or I'd be that, and you don't even know where it's coming from. That is a symptom of PTSD when you're talking about something that is a memory. Or I used to think this, like, I know that for a fact, like in my household, like I don't like to have a certain level of screaming and this and hollering. And I got two boys just being boys, and they in their rough housing, and I'm like, y'all gotta quiet it down. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I come home to my homestead, like, I just want that peace. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd be like, look, man, I've been doing this all day. I ain't got time for all this racket. You know what I mean?
Right,
But
right.
like you said, brother Jim's like, you gotta just sometimes let the kids get it out and not hamper their growth, not hamper their personalities and the things that they try to do, so it's almost like you said, it's like I got to check me, you know what I'm saying? If they're not being destructive or anything, per se,
Mm-hmm.
then it's kind of like, hey, I got this going on, I need y'all to quiet it down. But we got to understand that a lot of this stuff is coming from, us holding on to that emotional memory. I'll
Right.
say it like that. It's an emotional memory that we're holding on to, like I said, whether it's related to war, which I think the majority of people that are seeing this are probably not former veterans that were actually in war, but a lot of us have been in situations where we've had traumatic incidences happen to us, whether it's been growing up in a toxic family per se, what I said, sexual abuse that has maybe happened, someone who's been injured. I talked before in previous podcasts, people that have been in car accidents. Getting back in that car can be kind of a traumatic thing because you're holding on to the possibility of that happening again. You're holding on to that fear of like, man, there's a whole bunch of different opportunities for different things to happen, but I'm just focused on this one thing that might or could happen to me. You see what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
Or like in my case, you hear a certain sound that makes you feel a type of way, and it's just like, man, we need to get healing from that point. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, get past that point. We don't want to still be struggling from things that happened to us when we were 6, 12, 15, 18, or even currently now in our age 30s, 40s, whatever your age bracket in. It's just like, we have to say, we have to get to a place of understanding, and then with God's word, God's help, get to a place of healing for
Mm-hmm.
ourselves. Because like I said before, when you're taking the pharmaceuticals, medication, things like that, it is a quick band-aid, but it's not going to be a long-term success because you're not allowing yourself to be in position to actually deal with what's really going on here.
Most definitely. And before we move past this point, I like to acknowledge something we just talking about, even with our children, our households, and things like that. Because when children are young and they feel stifled, the first thing they say to themselves, "I can't wait to get out of this house." You know what I
I
mean?
can't wait till I get older and get paid for my own stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? And I just think like that. I want my children to enjoy every season with me. And when I say enjoy every season, I think this conversation is bringing a reality check for me. And when I say enjoy every season, like, yes, I'm a discipline, I'm gonna do what I do, but it's gonna be a healthy balance of it, almost how God deal with us. You know what I'm saying? Like in that same realm, it's like you're gonna want to be around God in heaven. You understand what I mean? So I'm just
100%.
thinking like how he operates, how he really is gentle and compassionate and all these things, but he has both sides. And so I want to always see that softer, gentle, compassionate side of him, even though I
Hmm.
know he has the other one. And so out of respect and fear, I'm gonna surrender, right? So I just think from that perspective, like, yeah, I think if you're watching this, I think you also need to want to have that type of relationship with your child if you having your PTSD moments at home, like we are talking about, we experience at times and stuff. So, let's be overcomers of that. Um, let's always be overcomers of that. So I just wanted to push that out before we go to the next aspect of this broadcast.
No, 100% right. The transitional point is, let's talk about healing. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So it's just like, how do we get to a place where we can begin to heal? I'll give you guys a couple pointers. When it comes to any type of healing, whether it's PTSD or some other type of mental condition that you feel like is stifling your life, it really starts with getting with a person, obviously preferably God first, but getting with a person or people that you can speak freely about your situation. So if you're a person who has, let's just say, been abused, whether that's been, physically, sexually, whatever it is, your first operational step to being able to heal and get better is being able to get with people that you can openly speak about that. Because the thing that comes with a lot of, let's just use that, what I just said, the thing that comes with a lot of that is guilt, is shame, is all these other things, including fear that comes with that. So in order for us to be in a position where we can get healed from that,
Mm-hmm.
get free from that, you have to get around a group, a person, somebody that you trust, where you can open up to, have these conversations with, and actually work through them and understand that there's not shame, there's not guilt. Those are things that don't come from Christ. You see what I'm saying? And so the first level of healing is always being able to be able to speak freely about it in the presence of God, obviously first, but being in the presence of people that can really pour into you, that can support you, and that can help you work through, whether it's fear based, whether it's guilt, shame based. Any of those types of things are always going to be the catalyst for you getting past that. Therefore, when those situations arise in the future, you're not going to have the same emotional attachment to it. You're not going to have the same memory based attachment to it, because we're going to work through getting out of all that. So that's going to be the direction we want to go when it comes to this type of trauma.
Most definitely. Most definitely, 100%. And I want to get a piece of the healing stuff too, because there's so many aspects of the Bible that tells us to be there for one another. But I like Galatians 6:2. It
Mm-hmm.
says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. A lot of people know I talk about there's a difference obeying the law and fulfilling the law. And
100%.
fulfilling the law is, I'm gonna go above and beyond, because I understand your trauma and where you're coming from to get you healed. But you gotta want it. You can't kick against me. You gotta want it too. So I just think that that's a very important aspect too, because we're told to carry each other's burdens so we can fulfill the law of Christ. And that is a big thing right there. It's like a lot of, because we're so and the map of the world helps me, because we're so self-absorbed here. It's very hard to genuinely carry somebody else's burdens, because you have your own junk you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're lights, bro, think about what I'm about to say. If we're lights, we shouldn't be having junk that we're dealing with. We should have junk that we've overcome, and we just overcoming the next thing. You understand how I just said that?
Yes, sir.
Because we're lights. That means I'm here to help. How can I shed light if I'm dealing with the same thing you're dealing with? That means I need to pay. So for the believers, this for you. Please focus on overcoming whatever it is you can see in your pathway right now. And then we can help each other and carry burdens and things of that nature. I'm telling you, the key though is to overcome what you're currently dealing with, so you can help the PTSD symptoms and things that people are dealing with, because you can actually give them be a guide to overcome. So I just want to throw that into the healing part of it. Jesus is big on healing, right? And he says, by faith, you are healed. Faith. And we love that word, but man, living it out is everything, bro. So by faith we are healed. So if you believe that your past doesn't have to determine your present and your future, that's a faith, right?
100%.
So PTSD is post traumatic. That means you're living in a past moment. You're living in a past situation.
After
You're
the fact.
ha ha ha
You're in
ha,
the
ha.
after the fact.
Right. You're
100%.
living in aftershock.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to live there if you have faith.
No.
So the key to overcoming, the key to healing, the key to getting through it is faith.
100%.
And you can't just have faith in the word that I go to church, or I attend a religious assembly. That's not faith. Faith is actually, I really believe that God has handled my past situation. I believe God has handled my past situation. He's handling what I'm going through right now, and he's going to handle my future. So I put all of my trust in him, and I obey him, and I do whatever he tells me. I think that's where healing comes from, bro.
No, you're 100%. You right on it, because it all starts there. I always said if we could obey the first two commandments, We could obey the first two.
Right.
Love God first, no other idols before him, and love our neighbor as ourselves. If we could just do them two, we wouldn't even need the rest of the law, the rest of the rest of the 10 commandments.
Because we fulfilling them.
If we could just fulfill those two. And so as I'm listening to you speak, it's like if we operate like that, but like I said, it's easier to stay in faith when you surround your people or surround yourself with other people
Mm-hmm.
who are on the same mindset, who want to pour into you, who are on the same faith walk journey and are looking to actually help you have progress as opposed to stifling your growth in the kingdom. And so that all that stuff is important when we're talking about, these different conditions and things like that. There's so many levels to this PTSD. A lot of the stuff that we're talking about may be more surface, but there's people who literally are in situations where they get triggered and they can't even function.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm talking about bedridden. I'm talking about in a room with the lights off. I'm talking about, hey, boss, I can't make it to work today. I'm talking about I can't go do regular daily events. I can't go run my errands, different things like that, because they're in such a traumatic headspace of, like we said, post. The keyword is post. It's already past, it's already gone. And so we really have to get ourselves into a space of let's get some healing from this, because we don't want it, this or any other mental health tag condition, to put us in a situation where it alters our ability to function properly.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you 100%. And what I want to add to that is, I like what you say when people um say I'm bedridden, I can't do this, I can't do that. All that's mental.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's mental. If you ever seen movies or anything where someone is just like in these situations or whatever, and then that one person will come and start taking care of the angry throw it off person, grabbing their hand every day, taking them outside,
Mm-hmm.
smelling the fresh air. All of a sudden, some start happening over time. They
Yep.
start to see through faith, getting up every day with this person who's there to gently take their hand and get them to the next step and stuff like that. They start to have faith. They start to do the opposite. Come on, man.
My thing is this, like, think about it like this for everybody out there. Think about it from this perspective. When you're getting these thoughts in your head about what you can and can't do, or what you're feeling like, understand that that is an emotional thing.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is, did God say it? Like, think
Right.
about that. Like, oh, I can't get out of bed. I can't do this. I can't. I. We got to be careful how we're speaking. Why can't you? What's on the other side of that can't? Why can't you? Is that something that would be more likely that the enemy would be saying, or is that something that actually comes from God? Because if we're really renewing the mind and believing what God says, we are overcomers.
Mm-hmm.
He said in Joshua 1:9, have I not commanded you to
Mm.
be strong and courageous? And sometimes that's very difficult to do on your own when you're trying to climb out of these spaces that may be dark places. And that's why it's so important to get around a person or people that are good. If you don't, definitely get with the word of Bible, or get to the words in the Bible, and get with God in that relationship, because that's going to be a catalyst to get you going in the right direction. But what we cannot do is continue to do the same things over and over and over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and expect us to get to a different place, or expect us to actually get healing from these events.
Man, I'm 100% with you, bro. And that's why we're going to start wrapping it up now. So, but that's why we have Be Strong Courageous. We have one-on-one help for women. We have women. For men, we have men. We have one-on-one help. We have counseling sessions that's available. We have all those tools that's available right now to you. Just reach out. Our email is Be Strong and Courageous. The word B is B. I meant the letter B. It's just the letter B. Strong and Courageous 777 at gmail.com. You see it on the bottom of the screen right now. Tick in the cross. Reach out to us, and we will bring you into what we call the fold. We'll bring
Mhm.
you into a place where you can receive counseling, help, and get built up into the word of God. We big on teaching. So I just want you to know that you don't have to fight this fight alone, because that's our job. Our job, God has hired us. Watch this. He's hired us to do this type of work. So whether we may not have the degrees and the training and all that, but we do have the faith. We have the faith, and we believe that you can be healed, will be healed, and if you desire to be healed. So I just wanted to throw that in there, man. So y'all guys and girls, women, men, however you want to say it, please reach out. We have one-on-one counseling, and we have help here at Be Strong and Courageous.
No, 100%. I mean, the biggest thing with us here at Be Strong Courageous, we want to be able to provide a safe space for you. I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things, is knowing that people have a safe space to get out what they need to get out, and to be able to grow and move on from that. And so that's what we're offering here, what Brother James was just saying. So if you have requests, like you said, be the letter B, strong and courageous, 777 at gmail.com. Gmail.com. Send us your request. And then in terms of below, if you have comments, please leave comments. And if this information is helping you, if you have other things that you want us to speak on when it comes to the mental health realm, please drop those in the comments too, because we'll be having a lot more of these podcasts moving forward. But our goal here is to provide operational healing, and not just to leave people in a space where they have to try to depend on medications to render their issues. So yeah, just like Brother Jim said, we're going to go ahead and close this down. Did you got any parting words for the folks out there, Brother Jims?
No, man, you could do your outro.
Yeah, so we appreciate y'all coming in for another episode of Be Strong Courageous Mental Help. I am Brother Hiawatha. So as always, go out there, be the light, clear eyes, full heart, and always be strong and courageous.
Let go.